Right. Kristen, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome. It's great to have you back on. And it's been a while. And I think we was just saying like there's been loads of changes in, our lives, in the world, society. And, it's good to catch up and touch base. But I just kind of thought want to touch base and kind of start off by like where you're at with things now, any changes that have happened in your world since we last spoke. And I know that you've had a lot of different bad things and hard things happen, like with COVID, work. Your husband wasn't too well, but I think he's all right now, isn't he? Like, kind of, do you want to like kind of go from
Yeah,
there?
he's doing well now, thank God. But yeah, last August he got COVID and he was hospitalized, and it was a really hard experience because a lot of people don't know, but like, depending on your hospitals, they have specific treatments only that they want to do. And sometimes I'm kind of a combination of Western and Eastern medicine mixed together. So it's really hard because we had very different concepts of how to heal the body and treat the illness. And so he went through a really rough patch. He was in a coma for over 30 days. I wasn't allowed to see him for the first 11. It was a really challenging time, but I had to kind of tap into like a lot of positive energy and faith. And it was probably like a really challenging, I mean, I know how to be positive in a dark time, but it was probably the first time I've been tested in a really long time. And then, he woke up thankfully. And then we had to kind of like go through the whole process of like just learning a lot of stuff. I mean, he had to learn how to eat again. He had to learn how to walk again. I mean, it was a really interesting experience because I mean, he was always so strong. So it was really hard having to be there for him and having to like really like it put us through a lot of different things. But it really brought us close because we tried a lot of interesting things to help him. And I think a lot of people just wait for someone to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. And I think sometimes you have to kind of grab anything and do a lot of research and kind of do whatever works for you. And we really opened up to a lot of different treatments and like a lot of Eastern therapies and a lot of holistic stuff. And I am really proud of him for how much he's opened up to. And it was a hard road, but he's doing amazing. He's been back to work. He went back to work in January, which was pretty quick for somebody who'd been through 74 days in ICU. People couldn't believe he was already back to being a construction worker. And yeah, now he's feeling great. Energy's back. So it's been a really long 10 months. So I kind of stopped on my social media and really just kind of focused on home.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, how he's recovered, and you've been there by his side, the entire time. And I know that, like, when things test us in life, you have to just kind of keep pushing forward and having that positive attitude, like you said before, and doing your research, I think, on what you think is right for your husband, and not necessarily, always what, doctors might suggest. You have to kind of like, especially with COVID, it's quite complex. And
Mhm.
I think you said, I remember you saying like there was giving him certain things that weren't agreeing with him, and you was like saying to them, this isn't working.
Right. Yeah, it's really hard because I think a lot of people don't realize that like you don't really have a say. And it's kind of hard because I'm appreciative. I know COVID was new for a lot of people, but there's a lot of other things that affects. So like once you get through the original sickness with it, you're really just trying to heal your body. And I think that there's a lot of resistance because there's a lot of red tape with the way certain things have to be done certain ways, because you can't use this because it hasn't been proven this way. But then sometimes you kind of have a gut instinct, and my gut instinct never lies. So I just kind of stuck with some of the things that I really thought. And then once we got out, it really gave us the opportunity to add the things that we wanted to do. And it was amazing how much his body got so much better, so much quicker. And I think mindset, that's one of the things I learned. When you're sick or you're going through a traumatic experience, your mind is so important. And a lot of people don't realize the power of their mind. People will tell you what you can and cannot do, but a lot of times the mind can do a lot more than people realize. And I think that was really interesting. That was a frustrating thing about it, because they couldn't understand that, because they're very clinical, or they really do things a certain way. And there's not really collaboration between Eastern and Western medicine, which I wish there were more, because I really think that they both have their strengths.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, like you said, it's with the mindset and the way you think, the way you envision yourself, the way you see things going, especially if you're going through a lot, whether that's medically, physically, whatever it is. It's like, what you're thinking and how you see that situation
Mhm.
is what will become of that situation. If that makes sense. So if you said your husband, you know, wishing to get better, visioning that, you will then move forward in that direction, won't you? And I think, like you said, it's not obviously some medicines are good and some of it, I don't know, but
Yeah, they have side effects. So
yeah,
unfortunately, like sometimes you give something for one thing because you have to, but then sometimes it brings on three other issues. So then you're kind of like you're in this like vicious cycle for a while. And with viruses in general, they do a number on your body, right? So
mm,
your body needs to kind of almost have like a reset. And especially after having like multiple medicines and pain medicines and antibiotics and all these different things being put into you for months, your body almost needs like a detox and a reset. And I think that we don't really talk about that. And that's what I really wanted to kind of focus on for him. And that's what we kind of started to do when he got home. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's going to take you like a year. Oh, it's going to take you this before you can do this. And I was like, you know what? Don't set those standards. We set our own standards. And I would set dates on like a whiteboard in his hospital room, like when we would be leaving. I would set dates when we are going to be out of rehab. I would set dates when you're going to go back to work, because setting goals for yourself, it sounds, I mean, we do it in life, but when you're facing a sickness or you're facing something, you have to almost take control of the situation, because the situation will control you. And it can really mess your mind up, and you really have to like fight really hard to kind of like control, really get a hold of it. Because, and I think that's what was easy for me, because when he was in a coma, I was spending so much energy focused on him being awake and recovering. And then when he woke up, he had to kind of catch up mentally, like, okay, now I'm awake. I lost all this time. And I was already like in this like fight mode. And I was like, okay, now we got to get the fight mode. Like, you got to get out of this bed and you got to get back to your thing. So I think that's what you got to do, is if you're a team, if you're a partner and somebody's sick, it's challenging, but if they're not feeling strong, you have to be strong till they can feel strong again. And I think that's the greatest thing about having the right partner in your life when you're going through a traumatic experience, you know?
yeah, most definitely. And I think that's something that I admire about you. Like, you're very driven, you're very what's the word? You don't take any like shit, so to speak. And you will, like, you know, say what you think, and you will say, you know, this is what I don't agree with, and you are accountable for the situation at hand, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
you was there for your partner during that difficult time. And like you said, when something like that happens, you have to be there for that person and keep on, supporting them. And it works both ways, doesn't it? Really, like
Mhm.
you said, if you're a strong person and partner, it's what you do in that situation. And I think it's incredible, how he's recovered, and that he's okay now. And I think that importance of setting those dates, like you said, having, not letting other people decide how things are going to be. You're saying, no, this is what I'm going to do and what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I mean, I think when no discredit to them, I mean, they see things in a way that happens all the time. So they see a progression and they're like, this is what happens. And I was like, well, that's not what's going to happen here. This is what's going to happen for us. And I just had to really set an intention of what we were going to accomplish. And that's the thing, when you say take no shit, it's really challenging sometimes, because when you're just a person who doesn't have a degree in certain things, and you just have a gut instinct telling you something, it's kind of hard to speak up or go toe to toe, or have a strong opinion, because they're looking at you like, well, what do you even know about this? And you're just like, it's not even just about this. Because I learned a lot about that, because that was my job. I would be at the hospital all day, and then if I wasn't working, I would just be on the computer at night, just learning what every aspect of COVID was and how it affects every organ, and what every effect of every medication was. Because, and I have a nurse in the family, so it was really helpful to have so many medical people in my life. And I learned a lot. But the thing is, when you have a gut instinct telling you something, my gut's never been wrong. So when my gut was saying one thing, I was like, well, this is what my gut is saying. This is what I feel internally. And I really feel like this is how it's going to we're going to leave here. And I know there were days that they looked at me like, what is this lady talking about? And then like 3 days later, he would be doing so great and they were just blown away. So it, you know, I used a lot of energy in that room, and I used a lot of like crazy things like binaural beats, which is like a music that has like a frequency of healing. And they would come in my room and just be like, what is this girl doing? But the thing is like, there's you know, you have to really look for anything and everything. When you're in a dark time or you're in a really scary situation, you have to try to find anything and everything around you that try to help pull you through. So music was a big thing that really helped me and him, I think, with our healing.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that before, and I've listened to those kind of binaural beats, and those is it alpha is it those different waves like brain
Yep.
waves, alpha, beta, gamma, and there's different frequencies, and
Hmm.
especially like when you go to sleep, you're in a different kind of like brain like state, like wave state. So like yeah, I mean like, and then you can see why that work, you know, how that would work,
Hmm.
and you know, like a lot of people might not know what that is or the benefits of it, but I know a lot of people who do listen to those kind of things and it does help them.
Hmm.
And I think,
Yeah, and they have them for like so many different issues. Like if you don't sleep well, if you have different things going on in your body, and I would change different ones. I would bring an iPad to his hospital room, and I would put on different ones for different days. So if I was worried about his lungs, I would put on the lung one. And then if there was he had a day when he was having a heart issue for a couple of days where his heart was stopping, so then I put a heart one on. So I would just change the different ones that I would put on for different days, and I would just leave it on the whole day I was there, and I would turn up as loud as I could because I couldn't put headphones on him. And I just kind of just kept being like, all right. And then I would use it for myself when I would go home to like calm myself down and help me fall asleep at night because I was just so anxious. But I really will say when you go through a traumatic experience like that, it changes you. And I really would say that it kind of did change me as much as I think it gives you a different perspective when your world gets kind of rocked like that. And I kind of have like, I don't know, I've always been a very positive person. I've always been really grateful, but it's a different grateful because when you look at the percentages of people that did make it out of his experience, you know, not many people made it out of what he went through. So it's kind of like you have like a second chance, you know what I mean? And it has a different gratitude. And then it's made me more conscious of other people. Like, do other people have a support system when they're going through like the medical thing? I really considered almost like, should I go into like being a patient advocate because so many people don't have anybody to question or ask or you know the family a lot of times is too tired or too exhausted to even like focus on the right questions or answers or do the research. So it's really made me think about a lot of different things.
yeah, and I think that's one of the key things I think, like you said, in that situation are people doing their research. That might, I think, when you're like you said in that dark place or you're going through those motions, it's like overwhelm, isn't it? So some people might be too overwhelmed, not know what to do, so then they just go along with whatever's recommended to them. Okay, let's
Mhm.
go with that, and then that might not be the best thing for that particular person because I mean we've all
Mhm.
got different bodies and we've all got different systems. So, like you said, having um, that realization that there might be something there, I think you know see what happens. You know, because I think like you said, you live through that experience and you've grown, and I think you gained a lot of resilience as well on top of who you were already are. If that makes sense.
No, definitely. And I love what you said when you said everybody's body's different. Like that's one of my most frustrating things is society in general. We have a one size fits all to everything. And I don't really believe every person is the same. Like I think every kid has a different skill set. I think everybody has a different superpower. And then when it comes to your medical and your health, everybody's wired differently. That's why some people have a peanut allergy, and that's why some people are gluten intolerant. And I think what's so crazy about COVID and so frustrating for me is that we're treating it like a one size fits all. And you might be a Toyota or you might be a Honda, but they don't have the same wiring. So if you're putting Toyota parts in a Honda, the car's not going to run properly. And I think that's one of my biggest frustrations is because a lot of times, they'll say, well, that's, like there's certain parts of the body, like viruses affect a lot of different issues. Like it affects your immune system, it affects your GI system, like, and then that can start a whole nother thing and create a different issue in different organs. And medicine is so specialized now that, they're like, well, this is what we do. And you're just kind of like, okay, but can we just take a little bit of a right over here. And they're like, no, this is what we do. And you're just like, oh, so it's been kind of interesting, some of the things that we've done when we got out and how his numbers have changed so much. So that's just one of the things that I think that sometimes you have to have the guts to say, well, what do you think about this? Or, sometimes they want to give you a medicine. You say, well, and if you check the side effects and say, I really think that's going to be the best one for us. It's okay to open up a discussion. The right doctor is going to be like, okay, why do you feel that way? All right, let's see what would be a better selection. And I think that's what I think people should be a little bit more conscious of, like learning to speak up for themselves a little bit, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's one of your strengths, and I think that's what people should do. They should stand their ground regardless of whatever situation, especially in that scenario with medicine and things. I think a lot of people might probably be scared or think it's the right thing. And I think, like you said, it's looking at the person, and one size doesn't fit all kind of thing. Like when I had COVID, I had it for like 5 days. I had hot and cold sweats. I had a bit of not a good cough, and I just felt a bit tired. But some people had it different, or some people were taking different things. I mean, I just drank, like, I don't know if it was working or not, but I had like honey, ginger, lemon. I remember getting like turmeric powder, just chucking this turmeric powder. It tasted like ass, but I drank it, and I had like zinc and multivitamins. And then I was kind of like you said, when you talked about having a date, I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine on around this time. And and I was, but like you said, like, you can't just say, "Oh, take this, it'll fix it." You know, it's it's been an interesting time, I think, since we last spoke, because there's been a lot of changes. And like, you work in the hospitality industry, and you must have seen lots of changes in that industry. I know I have on my side. And I think, like, COVID and just in general, and like you said, that experience you went through is, like I said, change you in probably a good way. You've gained a lot of strength and resilience, and made you probably realize and see things differently.
Yeah, I mean, the service industry has definitely been interesting. I just think it's interesting how the past 2 years have affected a lot of people. I really feel like, so many people have been really affected deeply mentally, and spiritually. It's kind of fascinating to me when I meet people, or I see people that I wait on. Some of the people I've known for a really long time, so I can really get a good barometer of how it's changed certain people, because I've known them for 10 years. I've been at my bar for 11 years. And then sometimes I'll meet people and just see, people coming out, and you can see some people are anxious and some people are happy, and everyone's at a different level. And I think that's what we have to kind of be. I don't see enough compassion about the fact that everybody's on their own path. And I don't think it's right or wrong. I mean, I try to be, some people are really cautious and they still want to wear a mask. I try to be like, okay, maybe there's somebody in their family, maybe that makes them feel more comfortable. I can feel bad that maybe they're still so scared, because I don't think fear really helps people's bodies in general. I think that's actually bad for you, but that's their journey. And then you see other people like, I don't give a fuck and I just want to live. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, that's what works for you. And it's been a long 2 years. So working with the public is a really big gift, to be honest with you, because it really has to challenge you to be a little bit more compassionate, and to be open. And you get people at their full dose. And some people are really angry right now. So you have to kind of like try to work through like their attitudes. And people like, Kristen, how do you like work through these personalities? Because like, I'll just try to find out what the hell's going on in someone's head. Like the other day I had a lady that was a little bit difficult, and she seemed a little tough, but it turned out she has a child that is severely autistic, and she is up here visiting them. And it made me really realize, like, wow, like, you don't even know what somebody's going through until you have a conversation. It's easy for us to judge, and it's easy for us to get frustrated by somebody's attitude, but you might not even realize that they're carrying something that's a lot harder than you are. So I think it's a good reminder of gratitude every day, because you might think your life is hard, then you talk to somebody else and you're like, shit, my life's nothing compared to that situation. So
Yeah.
it's a good gift.
Yeah, most definitely. And I feel like you said, it's we always kind of see what's happening on the surface, and people, you don't know what's happening in their life or what they're going through. And I think, like you said, especially working with people in hospitality, it's intense and it can be stressful in that role, doing what you're doing, and then managing and delivering people's, maybe, over their expectations or meeting their standards and providing that service, isn't it? You're kind of spinning these plates, and we just see what's going on in the forefront, but then, like, they might have had a bad day or they might have something going on. And I think it's quite a trade. I think everyone should work in hospitality, at least do a year to,
Yes.
you know you develop a lot of people skills. You can cope under pressure. So I mean, like you said, it's running that ship, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with you. 'Cause I know you worked in it, and I know you probably learned a lot. And I think that there is a gift about it. I think so many people just look at it as a job. I try to look at it as a gift because I've met so many amazing people. But it gives you a knowledge of people that you don't really get anywhere else. Like, I think it does make you such a better coworker. I think it makes you a better partner because you've learned to, like, almost get a little bit of a thicker skin, so you don't take things as seriously. Like, you can kind of like let things roll off your shoulders a little bit better than the most people. Or if someone's having a bad day, you're better be like, okay, what's wrong? Or kind of like understand that it's not you, it's them. So I think that there's a definite blessing to that industry that I think everybody should do, because I just think that makes you a better employee. I think it makes you a better person. And I think it might give you a different perspective, because it allows you to have interactions with so many people you probably would never have interactions with, especially living in Boston. Like, I get people here from all over the world, and a lot of people come here for business, or a lot of people come here for a vacation. So sometimes I get to meet a lot of people just locally, but then sometimes I'll get somebody from other states. And then sometimes I get people from other countries, and I just love hearing different people's stories. And we have a lot of international students. So I get to meet a lot of like younger people from different places, and it's cool to hear, about the different places that they're from, and it gives you a different perspective to life.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's one of the qualities, isn't it, within that industry. Like you said, you meet different people, and not just like people who live locally. You get people who might be on holiday, might be students, might be, seeing family or whatever. And you learn a lot, I think, talking to people and listening to them. And it gives you a certain perspective, I think, because sometimes you talk to people, you learn things about yourself, and then it's interesting just hearing about other people's experiences and what they're doing.
Hmm. And I think also too, Adam, you sometimes don't realize how much you have in common with, because we're all humans, right? And so a lot of times we don't even realize that. And then when you have a conversation, different face, different job, different place, and then you're like, but then there's a commonality like right here that you guys can connect on. So I think that's what so many people have forgot how to do, is find ways to connect with people. Like, we just want to always find a way to divide or recategorize everybody in all these little boxes and subcategories. And I'm like, yeah, but that kind of takes like a big world and makes it really tiny. Like, that's such a bummer, because if you only talk to like X, like, what do you say, XYZ? If you only talk to XYZ people, right? You miss all these opportunities, because now you're just like, well, I'm not going to talk to those people. And I'm like, well, but that person could have opened your mind to a completely different thought process, you know? So,
Yeah, I think that's one of those things you have to, like, if someone has a certain agenda, or someone isn't used to talking to maybe a certain category of person, it's those challenges where it will force you out your comfort zone to engage with, all people, really, isn't
mhm,
it?
yeah,
I remember when I worked in a hotel, like, a lot of people were retired and very, very wealthy, and in this particular hotel, and I used to feel, completely out of my comfort zone, because I'd never really worked, spoken to people in this certain kind of upper class, if that makes sense.
right.
Like, so I felt really uncomfortable because I wasn't used to it, and I was thinking, am I talking the right way? Am I pronouncing? It's stupid stuff.
No, but that's what we do in our head. Yeah, like we're like, ooh, are they, because you think that they're judging you because you're from here, they're from here. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I had to overcome that, but then over like time, it just became normal, and I was just going with the flow. And they're, I just thought, well, they're people. I'm a human. They're human. So
All just people. They might have a little bit more money, but they're still a person. It's like, say
yeah,
they're celebrities, like they're all just people, they just like, everyone is, worried what people think in some way, shape, or form, or everybody's like trying their best to get to a certain level in their life, or do things, and everybody's dealing with something. So like, yeah, like everyone's just a person. No one's better than anybody. And if you just stop like putting people on pedestals and just realize, you know what, they get up and brush their teeth just like me, then it just takes that pressure off you when you're dealing in different environments. I always try to remind that, like, they're just a person. Like, we're all just people. Like, in the service industry, you'll wait on famous people, or you'll wait on celebrities or athletes, and you have to just remember, like, just a person. Like, you don't get better, you don't get extra treatment because of who you are. Just like Bob doesn't get extra treatment because of Bob is. I give everybody the treatment like they're all a superstar, because people want to feel like they belong. I think that's what people like. They want to know that they matter, and they want to know that somebody cares about them. And it's really easy to flip somebody's attitude around if you're just like a little bit smiley. And it's funny lately, because everyone's so negative, I just wear all these t-shirts that have positive sayings. So like, I go to work and be like, one day it'll say stay positive, and another day it'll say like you know faith over fear, or courage. And I'll have all these shirts, and like, people like just get in a good mood because I walk over and they always want to talk to me about what's on my shirt. And it's a good little like mind trick, because it kind of snaps them into a good mood,
No, I love that, and I think it's that flicking this kind of twisting things around, isn't it? And reframing people's state of mind or emotional state, isn't it? Seeing that,
Yeah.
and that's one of the powerful things, I think, with words. Or you don't even have to say anything. It can be just saying something like that makes you think. And I think that's awesome. I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
And like you said, sorry.
I know, I was gonna say, because that's the whole thing, right? Because there's just so much negativity in the world, and I could focus on it. Like, I'm aware of it, but I can't just drink it, because it's gonna affect my mood eventually. So when I'm there, I try to do something kind of flip it for everybody, because everyone's feeling like this pressure. And like, sometimes I'll just put on like late night, I'll put on like this fun music, and it's just funny to watch people kind of like and just kind of like let go, and the people like, thank you, Kristen, we needed this. And it's just so funny how music can actually just like lighten the mood so much, or just a funny conversation, or like a high five. Like, it's just funny how you can just really just like help somebody just kind of like let go a little bit, because everyone's just like holding on to all this stuff right now.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think it's that people have different things going on, and I think there's a lot going on in the world, and people are almost like pressure cookers sometimes. If they're not dealing with whatever's going on in their tank, then it's just kind of fizzing away. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, having those moments where you might wear a shirt or play music or say something or whatever it is, people need that just to kind of, just wind down and let that kind of tap loose, so that makes sense. And I think especially when you're of service to other people, whether that's coaching, hospitality, retail, whatever, if you're of service to other people, you have to be okay in yourself to a certain extent, don't you? Because if you're not okay, you can't do what you got to do. And then if you're, especially in hospitality, if you go into a place where someone's miserable, they got it on them, you don't want to have a meal there, like, or you could say, oh, well, don't go to that place because of XYZ. So it's important, I think, if you, when you're a service, to kind of be okay in yourself and do what you got to do.
Yeah, I love that you said the word serve, because that's somebody said to me. I had a customer a couple of weeks ago, had a really cool conversation, and I just love sometimes how you say one thing or ask one question, it opens up this amazing like journey of like commonalities, or finding out somebody was like, he had a cousin that overcame cancer, and I opened up about my husband, and we had like this really deep conversation. And he like wrote like a nice email to me and was like, thank you for like serving, giving us such service, and like, the way you serve people. And it's so funny, because people are looked down upon serving, right? And I just don't, because I feel like it serves me. I don't know, it's like there's something about it. And I think people just like think that it's like a bad thing. Like they think it's bad to serve your partner. Like if you make your loved one a sandwich, like, oh, you're gonna serve your man a sandwich. It's like, yes, because it's called love. Like there's something about serving people, like you whether you're giving them like your attention or your time or like food. Food is something that like that just symbolizes like connection and love and community, right? So there's just something that's beautiful about it. And I think so many people don't realize the gift that they have when they're in that industry. They just look like, oh, I gotta go to work and make a couple sandwiches, you know. And I'm just kind of like, okay, shit. If I'm doing this, I gotta have fun. If I'm not having fun doing this, then something's wrong in my life. So I don't know. It's something like, even if I ever get, I don't know, if I go into another position and do something different, I think I'm gonna have to do it at least one day a week, because every time I do it, there's something that I have that I learned that the person will sit in front of me that I had to give it to them, or someone will have something that I'm supposed to hear. Like there's just too much stuff that goes on in the universe where I'm giving and taking, that I really feel like I have to have at least one day a week, because I feel like I'm going to miss, I don't know, something special, because I don't know, it just fills me in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. And I think, like you said, it's in that industry, you're meeting different people. And I think that's one of the driving forces that I had. It was, I would go to work and I'd be like, who am I going to meet today? You know, what conversations am I going to have? And like you said, that guy, you know, send you that nice email because you had that, you know, connection, because he's, you know, been going through something, and then, you know, you talked about it. And I think people, you know, want to feel that connected, and, you know, it's powerful what, um, you know, that being able to relate to other people, I think is quite powerful, and people wanting to feel like mutually understood, as well.
Yeah. And don't you think, like, when with your experience working in the hotels, you know, has it benefited you in your, like, in your career? Like, do you notice that you have like a better understanding, like when you're dealing with people?
Yeah, yeah, massively. I don't think, I mean, I think I had to do all the jobs that I've done in the past and worked, and being able to be under pressure to gain that. I think kind of like, it was resilience almost. It's a bit
Mhm.
like, you know, like someone, you know, how short swords are sharpened and they're kind of like beaten. I think it's kind of, you know, in that industry, I think that's what it's like. And I can't, I mean, some of the, I remember, like, you know, a chef one time in this restaurant, we have a thing called like scones,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I put too many through the order. And the chef said to me, he was like, "Oh, you're a fucking idiot." And I was like, "Sorry, chef." And he was like, "Yeah, but you said something else." And I was like, "All right, sorry, chef." You know, I just said, "Yes, chef, sorry, chef. Won't happen again." Get on with it. I had to have, you know, I had to serve like 20 tables outside. Got to get on with that. I couldn't hold on to it because there were people outside.
Right.
And then,
It'd be downwards, it would be like everything would just ruin your whole entire day, and it would just kept going. Yeah.
yeah, so situations like that, um, you know, then you get difficult, you know, it's, so you've thrown all these different scenarios. So I think I had to do that, and the communication, the listening, um, patience, you know, like, yeah, I think trying to succeed under pressure. So in time, you know, all these things, punctuality, you know, making sure you closer, you know, like, not creased, and all these small things. It's not always the big things, those small things that kind of make you who you are, I think.
Oh, 100%. Like there's like those little details that you get, because I feel like it's a great training force, you know, because a lot of places don't have such like things. And I think the reason chefs are sometimes tough, or managers are tough in that industry, is because they know someone's going to wreck your head when you get to a table. And if you just start crying at a table or like lose it, right, it's not going to help. So I think that's why I think that's why they were kind of tougher behind the scenes, because you had to be able to, it's almost like they have to build you up a little bit, that you can kind of like take the hits, because you just never know what someone's going to throw at you, you know. And yeah, I think that's what's fascinating about that, like just people in general, like what sometimes people think is okay to say out in public is, you know, it's really fascinating to me sometimes. And you know, you're sometimes put in uncomfortable conversations or uncomfortable situations, and you've got to really think fast on your feet, like, okay, how am I going to respond to this? And, like one time somebody's making like this, he kept making this joke to me and he thought it was really funny, but it was a completely different thought set of how I think. And he just kept it going. And then finally I just kind of said, well, I really don't agree with that. And I think he was like not expecting that. He just thought that like everybody thinks the same way. And I was just like, well, I go, a lot of people are just going to ha ha ha, and they're just going to take it. But I have my own opinions and I don't agree with that. And so I'm just going to tell you the truth. And he was just like blown away. And he's like, oh, Kristen, I really like you. And then like he wanted this whole deep conversation with me, and he started asking me all these questions about life and everything that's happened over the past couple of years. And it was kind of interesting because I think he was just like, his mind was blown, because a lot of people expect people to just be like, ah, okay, yeah, and they're not expecting anybody to kind of give it back, and then and then they have to challenge themselves to really be able to keep up the conversation. So it's fun. It's fun having like playing with people sometimes, because it helps them loosen up, or it makes them sometimes be like, oh shit, maybe I should think twice before I say, this next time, because maybe somebody doesn't agree with what I say. Not everybody has the same thought process.
Yeah, definitely. I think because you see so many different people, and people from all different backgrounds, you have this kind of like multi kind of spectrum lens, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you just see kind of like you said, like very kind of open, whereas some people kind of live their life the whole time like this,
Mm-hmm.
very tunnel vision, they're like closed in. Whereas when you're in that industry, you can't be closed in. You have to be very open to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it challenges you in different ways. I remember we had like 4 different head chefs, 5 different head chefs in the space of a couple of months. Manager got fired, all these things. And I remember one time um, ironing tablecloths upstairs, laying up these tables, and then it was just me because my other colleagues were on a break. So as I was ironing the tablecloths, I was listening out for people coming into the bar. And so when they did, I had to stop what I was doing, turn the iron off, run downstairs and pour the drinks for them, and be like, "There you go," and then run back upstairs. But we had no staff, so. But
Yeah, it's like you gotta make it work, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
you've probably had that working in bars where you're just doing 20 different things at once.
100%. Like that's the greatest thing about being a bartender, is like you have like you have to be able to multitask, and it's kind of funny too, because speaking of like understaffed, like there's no staff I don't know. There's a staffing shortage. Like nobody seems to want to work. I don't know what everybody's doing. We're lucky that we're staffed, but we run with a very small staff all the time. It's always how we've been. But it's funny because it's made people be like, people are really appreciative, because if you're good and you're friendly and you're fast, they're just like, thank God, because like there's just so much bad service right now. So that's been really interesting to see how some people are a lot more like appreciative, so they're like, oh, you guys are so great, or you're so nice, or wow, we got everything we wanted. Like, thank God, so it's really challenging. I mean, like there's just, yeah, a lot of restaurants in Massachusetts don't have any staff. Like they can't even be open some days because there's nobody to work. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of similar here where I live. I mean I live like the coastal part of England, and some like here you have to kind of really drive, and if you don't drive down here because it's quite cut off, I think that's one of the difficulties that in restaurants or hotels here, unless they have live-in accommodation, but then if they're cut off and remote, I think it can drive some people crazy because they're just always in the same little place. So it's kind of that hit or miss down here. But
Mhm.
really, a random question, like what do you do to like kind of relax? Like what do you do for like downtime or whatever in general?
I like to listen to sometimes I just like listen to music, or I like to listen to some podcasts. I don't know. I'm a curious person. I'm just on a quest to learn. I just
Yeah,
like hearing lots of information from lots of different point of views. And then I like to kind of like research things. And I know that doesn't sound relaxing, but it's something that I don't know, my brain's a very curious brain. So I like to try to educate myself a lot. I don't know, it's interesting to me. I just kind of like to get lost on like the computer for a little bit once in a while on my downtime, and just kind of like read things. I love to spend just time with my family. That's probably like my other favorite things, working nights and different schedules. I just really love to just like yesterday was 4th of July weekend, and we just really had like a family weekend. Like we took my mom out to dinner and my stepdad on Sunday. And then yesterday we just had like a relaxing barbecue at my mom's pool, and just hanging out with everybody with nowhere to go is just my favorite thing. Just, you know, and stuff like that. I like to just kind of sometimes go for a walk. I like to be by myself sometimes because I'm around people so much. So sometimes for me to relax, I like to just kind of just get lost on my own. Like sometimes I just like to go for a drive or just walk around a place by myself and just kind of just get lost for a couple hours. To me, that's relaxing because it lets my brain just kind of like be able to just decompress a little bit and not have to be talking to everybody else, because I'm
Yeah.
talking all the time. Yeah.
No, I think that's really important. I love, the things that you do, and I think like I think that's one of the key things. I think just in life as well, like recognizing what you need for yourself as well,
Hmm.
um, so you can do the things you need to do. And I think, like you said, when you work in hospitality, you do talk to a lot of people, but like you do need that, your own space. I think everyone needs their own space to some extent,
Hmm.
um, just to recharge and decompress. And like learning different things is always good as well, and researching things and looking at stuff. Um, like, do you read much at all? Have you like read any books recently? Or do you just
I try to read, but I have attention problems, so I'm actually going to get Kindle so I can listen. I bought a lot of books recently, and I'm trying to read this new book that my friend, he was a co-author. It's called Pulling Each Other Along, because I was, when I was going like a couple months ago, we were still trying to figure things out with certain things going on with my husband, and I was just feeling like kind of like, oh God, I was just feeling so overwhelmed. And I met him through DMs on Instagram, and he publishes a lot of books that are, a lot of them are sports related, but some of them are just really uplifting stories. And the book Pulling Each Other Along is like 31 inspirational stories written by different people about their experience. And his name's Todd Sivan. And that book has been amazing. I've been reading that recently, and it's just, some of these people's stories are just insane. And then other people have gone on and written a whole book about their experience. Like one mother had a son that was in a car accident, had a traumatic brain injury. And it was a very similar story to my husband. And like, they were going to pull the plug because they didn't think he was going to make it, and he's completely fine now. But she fought to keep him alive. And just like, it's a really heartwarming book to just hear about other people's journeys. It's either you pulled someone along or somebody pulled you along. So I think that's a really cool premise for a book. And I think it's something that's kind of nice to read in this negative world, because a lot of times we forget that there's great people in the world and how much we can impact somebody else's life. So that's something I'm reading right now.
No, that's great. And I think like like you learn a lot from other people's experiences and seeing what they've been through. And
Hmm.
like it really makes you realize how lucky you are, and makes you, I think, really grateful for, your life, and to appreciate, other people, and, the small things, isn't it? And like there's a lot of information out there, a lot of things kind of thrown at us. And I think it's looking at the things or the sources that you're okay with, and you'd be like, okay, well, I don't want to look at that, but I'm going to get my information from here, or X, Y, Z. I think
Hmm.
that's what I've kind of learning to do is, not be oblivious to things, but making up my own, like we talked earlier, making up your own mind about what's going on.
Right. Yeah, you can't be oblivious. I think you have to be aware, but then you can't be uber aware that it just consumes you, because then I think it's really stealing a lot of people's joy. And so I think that's one of the things that's kind of like a balancing act of like getting information and then be like, okay, let me focus on what I can control and the people that are in my life, and then getting information and be like, okay, but don't, so sometimes I have to shut things down. Sometimes I'll go into like a lot of like knowledge and information. I'm like, okay, shut it down. Okay, inspiration, and filling my cup back up. And it's a constant battle for myself. But I just remembered another book that I did read. I read this to my husband when he was in ICU, The Alchemist. Absolutely love that book. And I think so many people should read it, because it just kind of reminded me of our life, because my husband and I have been through a lot of really hard journeys through our life. And that's like when I say when he got sick, it was like the first time we've been hit in a while, because we're on a nice path. Like the past 5 years, COVID was hard, but we both like kind of worked through it. We were both working the whole time, and like Boston wasn't that difficult. So like we could kind of keep normalcy for ourselves. So it wasn't as hard for us until he got sick. But the book, The Alchemist, I think is such an interesting book. Just I think it's a great book for anybody to read, when they're just kind of on a self-discovery journey, because I just like the way it's told. And I thought there's a lot of great nuggets of lessons in that book.
Yeah, I have read that book a few years ago. Paulo, I can't even say his name. Paulo Coelho, I think it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, because it's about like a trader, is it? Like a trader or something, this young boy.
It's a young
And
boy who's a shepherd, and he's on a
that
journey,
was it.
and he keeps leaving, he's on a journey, and he keeps going through all these different experiences, but he learns life lessons along the way. So it's kind of about finding, and like I think the reason I like it so much is because I think everybody has a superpower and they just don't know it. And I think a lot of people are sometimes trying to do things that they think other people should, like they're living a life that they think people think they should live instead of living the life they should live. And I think that's what that book is so good at, helping people learn, like what should they really like what's their real calling, you
Yeah.
know?
No, that's it. And I think that it kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Because I mean, like with that book, it's like you said, people in life do things that they think they should do because of other people might tell them to do, or that whatever image they have for themselves. And it's like, everyone has a path, don't they? And
Right.
it's people sometimes discover what path they should go on based on some things that might happen. I mean, that happened to me. I was on one path, and then I had that accident, and then okay, well, you're on this path now.
Right.
Oh, okay. And I think like COVID as well, that put people on derail people's paths, and then okay, well, I'm going to do this now. So I think, like you said, with that, staying, getting to know yourself, isn't it, and going with what you want to do, and figuring that out.
Yeah. And I think what you said, your accident and then putting you on a different path, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. When that really hard thing happens to you, or that challenge comes your way, one of the things I said when my husband was in the hospital and I didn't know if he was going to make it, I was kind of like, okay, I have to tap into faith over fear, because if I allow myself to be fearful, I'm going to bring the wrong energy into this experience. Second of all, I have to try to find what the lesson is. There's got to be a lesson in this hard thing. And when you do those little mindset shifts, it makes things make sense a little bit, even though it doesn't seem like it makes sense, even though it seems like this is the most awful thing and I don't even know why I'm going through this. You have to try to find a lesson in it. And to me, that's what I think it did for me. It really opened my mind up to see things differently. And sometimes it just changed the trajectory of your life. Like I used to do comedy a couple of years ago. Now I'm not really really as into it. Like I like to watch it, but I don't really find it's not like my path. I really feel like I'm more like a helper and a healer. So I really feel like I've really learned a lot. I really think that deep down, that's what my calling is to help and heal. So I think that's what I'm going into. I originally got into comedy for that, in a way, to kind of help people find commonalities. And it's just kind of funny how like the things that happen in your life kind of opens up your passion or your path a little bit more each experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's that, how we are as human beings, we shift and we grow, and we're doing one thing, moving in one direction, because we're, like I said, might be making people laugh, and that's, you're putting positivity out there.
Right.
And then, it's okay to stop and reassess the situation, and then change it. And I think like the situation with your partner, I mean, I think what you just said there, you know, things you were saying to him, and reassessing what's going on in that, when he was in the coma and things. You have to kind of break down the situation, don't you, and ask yourself, what am I, like the lessons, what am I taking away from this, and
Mm-hmm.
and going with that.
Yeah. So that's
And
where I'm at right now.
yeah,
So I'm still just kind of on this little journey, and I'm kind of like excited about like what I got from it. Like I think I learned a lot over the past year. It's going into a year. August will be a year. So I feel like you that's what you do. You take you grow, you learn, and then the path kind of opens for you, like what the next direction is. So I'm kind of excited about what I'm going to be doing next. I don't know. I love bartending, but I also I have ideas. So I have a lot of I feel like the past couple months I just kind of took a break from social media a little bit, so it's kind of giving me a different perspective. So just kind of like my ideas are in the incubation phase, and we'll see where we wind up in the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I wish you all the best in everything that you're doing, and whatever evolves, in time, with what you do. And like, where can people find you on social media, that kind of thing?
You can find me on Instagram at Kristen, being Kristen, I'm Krstin. And my podcast is on hiatus right now, but there's still 20 episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and that's called Chicken in a Bag. It's video and audio, so that's what I have up for now, and I'm hoping to relaunch that in September. But I have some new ideas, so I'm gonna take the rest of the summer off and then kind of relaunch in the fall.
Ah, it's awesome. But it's always great, talking to Kristen, and I appreciate you talking about what happened with your partner and your husband. And like, I'm really grateful to be your friend, and we've known each other for a couple of years now, and it's always
Yeah.
great, to chat to you. And yeah, I look forward to the next time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was great chatting with you.
You too. You too. Take care.